So the third subtask of the JSON Data Processor project, we're going to give users an option to search through the students.json folder. So basically we're going to ask the user to give an ID based on which we're going to search through the JSON folder, and if it's present we're going to return it, or else we're going to give out an error message. So looking at the objectives, we can see first we have to ask the user to give a student ID based on which we should search. So then we're going to validate the input given by the user to make sure that it's an ID value. That is, let's say I give the ID as a letter A or letter B. That cannot be, because ID should be in numbers. So that's why we have to validate the input given by the user. And if the input is not a valid number, then we're going to display an error message saying input a valid ID number. And if the input is valid, we're going to proceed further. So we're going to search for the student by iterating through the entire list of student records. And then we're going to display the search results as to whether we found the student or the student was not found in the records. So we have our expected output over here. Coming to the code, first we are importing the JSON module. Then we're going to give students.json as file name so that we can reference it easily. And I've explained these two functions in the previous subtask. Coming on to the next function, that is search student function. First we're going to load the data by calling the load data function and storing the list of dictionaries we get from that function in the students variable. And over here we're asking the user to give an input as to what student ID they want us to search by. The dot strip over here is basically used to remove any kind of trailing or leading white spaces that might be present in the input. That is, let's say I give input as space 1 or 1 and give a space. Then it's not the same as just a 1. So it will make comparing a bit difficult. Instead, we're going to remove any kind of white space to normalize all the input we receive from the user. That's why we've used dot strip over here. And now over here we are checking whether or not the input given by the user is actually a digit using isDigit. So if it's not a digit, that is, user has given an input other than a number, then we're going to print out invalid input. Please enter a valid numerical ID. So the input we get over here from the user will be of string data type. But to compare, we need it in integer data type, hence we are converting it to integer over here. And then we're going to iterate through the list of dictionaries which contains the data of the JSON file using for student and students. So let me just explain this for loop considering the first iteration. So for the first iteration, it will be for the student 1, that is, will be the first element in the list of dictionaries, which is basically the first student. So for the first student present in students, we're going to check if that student's ID. So if the student ID, that is for the first iteration, if the student ID matches the student ID given by the user, then we're going to print out student found in the new line and print out the student info. And once we get out of this for loop, let's say we do not find the student we wanted to find, then we're going to print out no student found with ID, student ID. So the F over here stands for format. So what it basically does is, it makes sure whatever is present in the floor bracket is evaluated at runtime. So that is, it's going to actually print out the value of student ID instead of printing out the word student ID. This basically makes it simpler to print out variables. So if you do not find a student which you're looking for in this for loop, then we're going to print out no student found with ID. Over here we have the user choice function and the main function. So let's just run this code once and check if it's working. So let's say I give search student by key value pair, that is basically search student by ID. So let me give an ID of 4. So I've gotten the name of the student and the rest other info. Now let's say I give search student by key value pair and I give a letter. So you can see invalid input, please enter a valid numeric ID. So let me give something outside of the total number of student records we have right now. That is, let me give a student ID as 100. So you can see we got a message, no student found with ID 100. Let me just submit this code once. So you can see we've passed all 3 test cases. Let's move on to the next subtask.